and it comes. There goes the shot on goal. It's in. It's in. Jamie Dwyer.
Heavy lifting, goes up the Graham, takes the lead, looks a winner, draws away from
the Australians have just broken the American stranglehold on this race.
So welcome to the Path to Paris.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for having me on.
We're only a matter of days away from the Paris Games. Do you get a little bit of an extra kick, at times like these? Because this was once you who achieved that Olympic dream.
I know, and you get a kick, but you also get a little bit of a sad moment because it is over for us retired athletes, and we don't go back and we don't go and compete there anymore. And it can be really hard to take because we, as you said, we dedicated our lives to the sport and our dreams of making the Olympic Games, and then your dreams of winning an Olympic Games, and it's over in a second, it's over in a flash. Yeah. But when you're in it, it's like a lifetime. And so, yeah, it is exciting, but it's also a lot of mixed emotions in there as well.
I think you've kind of answered my next question, which was simply, do you wish you were still out there?
I did initially when I first retired. I couldn't even watch. In particular, I couldn't watch the hurdles. That really hurt me. I could watch athletics. That was fine. But the hurdles, because it meant so much to me, and it's so weird. It was my event.
Yeah.
It was really, really tough. I would avoid it as much as possible. The good thing is now is I'm getting past that. What has it been? 5 years since I retired, which is unbelievable. I can't believe it's been that long already. But it's getting easier, which is such a nice feeling. It's a freeing feeling. But there are moments where I wish I was still back out there, definitely. But that is also leaving as well. That's getting easier to handle, is that I won't be back out there competing. I do some training every now and then. I'm like, how did I do this every day for years? Like, I walked up a hill in Townsville last week and I woke up sore. What is going on?
Yeah. I mean, look, I suppose that's consistent with anybody, when you move from one stage of life to another. It's a big transition process. I'm really looking forward to, chatting to you about that. But we will save retirement for the end. But it was 12 years ago that you won that gold medal. We haven't won one in athletics since at the Olympic Games. Why have athletics medals at the Olympics proven so elusive for Australia?
I guess sounds horrible, but it's the truth. We just weren't good enough. We just didn't win them. It's not because of the lack of trying or the lack of wanting to do it. It's just we weren't good enough on the day, and the other countries were. And sometimes there is some luck involved. I mean, it's pretty hard to see the results from Athens in 2004 when Bronwyn Thompson was fourth behind 3 Russians in the women's long jump. Those sort of things happen as well. And that's when I guess it's so controversial to even talk about it. But yeah, I guess it's just weren't good enough at the time. But I think what I'm seeing now in this next generation of athletes is we've got more than just a handful of contenders for medals, and we're in a very exciting time of athletics. And what will top it off is if we actually bring those medals home. Yeah, that's the next phase. All right, you're on the team. You're one of the favourites to win, but now you've got to go do it.
Yeah,
that's the hardest part. But I think what we've got is athletes that can do it. They get it. They know how to do it. And that is a whole other level of elite. There is knowing how to do it, figuring it out.
Yep. I believe, look, I won't go through all of them. I believe it's 20 athletes from Australia who are going to Paris in athletics. But sort of some of the ones I suppose you're talking about, Nina Kennedy, Curtis Marshall, Eleanor Patterson, Nicola Olaslagas, pardon my pronunciation, Jess Hull. There's there are a handful of athletes who are genuine medal chances. I suppose that is exciting, but what you mentioned is like the Olympics is once every 4 years. Things have got to go right on the day, right?
They really do, and that is the hardest part to get. But it's easy when you know how. So these athletes know how to do it, but they've never done it before. So that was my biggest thing when I went into the London Olympics in 2012 was I knew I could do it, but I had never won an Olympic gold medal before. I'd won silver in Beijing, but a gold medal, I think, took a little bit extra out of me. And I did what I thought was right for myself mentally and physically, and obviously it was right on the day. And now these athletes, none of them, except for Kelsey, and Nicola, have an Olympic medal. So
Mm.
it's going to be tough for them to now. Okay, how do I step it up and win that gold medal? It's
Uh,
yeah, it's difficult, but that's what makes it so great, right? Is that it is so hard.
Yeah, correct. And I can't wait to chat about that journey for you because it did happen in order. It was silver in Beijing and then gold in London. So we'll get to that in a second. But one of my favorite parts about this series, Sally, is hearing the inner child take over when I speak to Olympians, because that inner child's within all of us. But sometimes, I suppose, when we grow up, we become adults, it gets blunted a little bit. But um, it's so, I love hearing it burst out with pride in these people. So take me back to a young Sally McClellan. She was born in Sydney, grew up in Queensland. Were you always where did the fire ignite for athletics?
Not for athletics. I was 6 and I was doing gymnastics and I was in the elite
Yeah.
level stages of gymnastics. And I remember sitting down with our coach and she said, we were talking about the Gladiators TV show in the early 90s, which was huge.
Yeah.
And our coach just said, you guys can go and do that. You'd be the best gladiators. You're so much stronger than those people, blah, 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 blah. I kept going on. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, yeah, I can. Like, I can do that. Like, I was 6 years old, and that was the
Yeah.
ultimate sporting achievement was being a gladiator. I didn't know what the Olympics were at that time, and I never really had dreams of being an Olympian at that age. It was I knew from that day forward that I was going to be the best athlete I was going to be the best at something in the world. I didn't know what that meant, but I just had that feeling of assurance that it was going to happen, but I didn't know what in. I had no idea that was going to be athletics. Didn't even do athletics at the time,
Yeah.
but I was just. I went through my ages. I every year I did gymnastics, and I went to little athletics when I moved to Queensland. And I was like, what is this? Why am I flipping down the runway? Like, why am I running in a straight line and nothing happens? Like you just run across the line and that's it. And I'm like, this isn't that fun. Like, where's my tumbling? Where's my cartwheels?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
um, but I stuck with it, obviously, because I was good at it. I was naturally fast. And so I just kept going through the motions. Still didn't really understand the sport. And then I got a coach, and that kind of showed me the pathway into transition into like club athletics, because I had no idea what was after little athletics. Because I remember watching on TV, like I watched athletics on TV sometimes, and
Yep.
I'm like, how do I do that? Like, I
Yeah.
didn't know it was the Olympics. Or I didn't know if it was a world championships. I didn't know what it was. But I'm like, how do I do that? How do I do athletics on TV? Because to me, that took me back to my 6-year-old Sally, whereas I was going to be the best. And so to be the best, I had to be on TV. So that was where my mind was going. If I'm going to achieve this being the best in the world at something, I have to be on TV, because that's where it's at, supposedly. That's where my mind
Yeah.
was. So yeah, that was all really interesting. But between when I finished gymnastics in Sydney and started athletics in Queensland, I kind of went through a phase where I wasn't really doing anything. I just did little athletics once a week. And other than that, I was just being a kid, never really had aspirations to do the Olympics. But I just went along those few years between 8 years old and 14 years old, where I
Mm.
had this assurance that everything was going to be okay. It didn't matter in terms of winning or losing races. Because I didn't win all the time when I was younger. There was a period where you had like a Jacinta Boyd, who was Alana Boyd's sister.
Yeah.
Had this other girl called Michelle Cutmore, who made the Commonwealth Games in 2010 in the relay. and all these other ones, and they just kept winning all the time, and I was always losing. But I always had this assurance that I was still going to be the best, because my 6-year-old self told me so.
Yeah, it's amazing, and that belief is something that's so important for us.
Yes, yeah,
So you've kind of touched on it there. I was aware certainly that you were a reasonable, in fact, quite successful world junior athlete. You picked up a few medals, but how important was it? You've just said you didn't win all the time.
yeah.
How important was it that you, I suppose, looking back and reflecting now, that you didn't win all the time? Because there is an art in learning how to, I suppose, I don't particularly like the word lose, but there's an art to losing, and or at least to not winning, right?
Yeah, I was a terrible loser. I hated losing, and I used to chuck a tantrum about it.
Yeah.
And I remember one race I did in Sydney, when but I was young before we moved up to Queensland, so I wasn't really into athletics, but I'd made some competition. I don't even know what it was. And I lost, and I stomped off the track, and I stomped up the stairs, and I threw myself down in the stadium, sat there, and just humphed next to my mum. She just looked at me and she said, if you're going to act like that, we are going home right now. And then I just
Yeah.
sort of brushed myself off and
Yep.
just forgot about it because I didn't want to go home. I wanted to stay there and
Of
keep.
course.
So yeah, I was a really bad loser, and I was a bad loser for a really long time. I don't
Yep.
think I ever really got good at losing.
No.
I had a bit of a tantrum in the back of my mind, if I lost. Um, I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but anyway, I learned how to deal with it in public as
Yeah.
I could.
Yeah. Yeah.
And around other people, particularly the people you're racing against, because it's kind of, I guess, in a way, it's disrespectful, even though it's not personal to them. It was
Yep.
more, I just hated losing to anybody. It didn't matter who it was. Yeah, I think, but I think I was more annoyed because I knew I could win and I wasn't winning.
Yes.
And I'm
Yes.
like, why aren't I winning? I'm doing everything I'm supposed to be doing. But it was learning how to compete, I guess, and learning how to train and putting all of the pieces together, and having patience at a young age, um, and realizing that there are other people in the race that want to win just as much as you do. Just because you think you can win doesn't mean they don't think the same thing as you as well. It's almost like I thought I was the only one in the race that wanted.
Yeah. I wanted it more, but
How did they win when I wanted to win more? It was a funny sort of process that I was going through because I couldn't figure that out. And it was, I think, just going back and then having the confidence to say, right, I want to win and I'm going to say it out loud, rather than having that Australian, I guess,
Mm.
culture of we love the underdogs and you don't want to sound arrogant or cocky because you want to win. Like there's all of that I think Australians just need to get over.
Yeah.
There's difference between arrogance and confidence, I suppose.
Yep.
I and then So 2007, I didn't even make the final at the World Championships in the hurdles, but the year later I got silver. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it was just preparing yourself at training properly, focusing on what you needed to focus on. I was 21 when I won silver in
Mm.
Beijing, and so that's still very young, but it's learning very quickly how to live your life as an elite athlete.
So what struck a chord there, Sal, was when you were talking about your your tantrum and you went and sat next to your mum and she said to you, if you're going to carry on like that, we're going. I recall probably 3 or 4 times. I was also a bad loser, still am, but I learned some valuable lessons. Like, and obviously, just casually, I remember playing tennis with mum one time, and she beat me, of course, and I was throwing a tanty, and she said, I'm not going to play with you if you're going to act like this. And for me, it was, it's only because I want to keep playing and the game's over. I want to keep playing. I love it. Dad did some very similar things, probably in some more severe ways. Did you learn some pretty strong lessons from your mum?
Just to hide myself better when I'm losing.
And carry it in public? Yeah.
Like, yeah, not to like put it out there and chuck a tantrum. It's like, okay, we'll go behind closed doors.
Yeah.
You can then chuck a tantrum.
Yeah.
So I still chucked the tantrums. It was more just doing it in my private time.
Yeah, sure. So quite a successful 100 and 100 meter hurdles junior. So you were doing the 100 flat and the hurdles, but you ultimately dropped the 100 to focus on the hurdles. Now it's hard enough getting your body in shape to run as fast as you can for 100 meters and get there pretty quickly in 11 and a bit seconds. What drove you to, I understand, approaching Beijing in 2008? You and Sharon Hannon decided let's put our focus on the 100 hurdles. What drove you to make that decision?
I've had a couple of moments in my life where it's been a little bit of a light bulb moment or a realization maybe that I wasn't going to be good enough. And first one came when I was probably 7, doing gymnastics. And I remember I was New South Wales then, and I went to the state championships for it. And straight away, I knew that I was out of my depth. I knew and it hadn't even started yet, but I had looked at the other girls and I saw just how good they were. And I'm like, I know I'm not as good as that. And I wasn't like defeating, and I wasn't like, no belief in myself. It was just a realization that, okay, I know where I stand here and it's nowhere near as what these girls are. So I knew that this was not going to be my long-term sport. Not that I thought of any other sport, but I just knew that this wasn't going to be gymnastics.
Okay.
And then the second one came in 2007 when I went to the World Championships, and I was in the 100 and I was in the 100-meter hurdles. And I'd come from a successful junior background of doing both events, and even the Commonwealth Games in 2006, quite successful with doing the 100 and the hurdles, making the finals. And then World Champs came, and that's a whole other level. Like, that is ridiculous. And in the heat of the 100 meters, which was first, I'd run 11:14. It was boiling hot, and I had just run a huge PB.
Yeah.
And across that finish line, I collapsed and I had to throw ice all over my body. And I realized then, and I even said it to the media, I think straight away, I said, I won't be running the 100 meters in Beijing. I knew
Wow.
straight away
Just
that
instantly.
I couldn't do both. And I knew that the 100, that running that heat, 11:14, I felt like that's all I had.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to get any more out of myself. And maybe that was a little bit defeatist then. Maybe I could have run a sub 11 seconds if I had concentrated on the event. But even now, sub 11's not, it's not guaranteed to even make a final. And I wanted medals. I wanted
Yep.
international medals. And I knew I made the semi-final in the hurdles as well. And even though I didn't make the final and I didn't run a personal best, I still felt like I had a lot more in me to give to the hurdles. I knew that's where I was going to be. And that was another realization moment for me. I knew that, okay, hurdles is my event and that's where I'm going to stay.
Yeah,
So
great.
that's when I decided, and it wasn't even a conversation with my coach. It was just to the media. I'm not doing the 100 next year.
Here's what I'm doing. As you know full well about hurdles, Sal, but perhaps not everybody listening will know this. Fortunately, I grew up under a mother who was a great hurdler, and she always talks to me about the technical aspects of hurdles. And I suppose for the regular Joe, you sort of watch them, and it's people not jumping; they are hurdling over these barriers. But what Mum always said was things can go wrong. And I remember watching your race in Beijing, and I think it was Raylene Boyle. And she made a comment on the commentary. She said, "That's the classic hurdles. Things can go wrong." And I was like, this is what I've been hearing so much. Now, that particular day, it worked out well for you, but it's not always like that. We will circle back to Beijing because that is an amazing moment. But talk about things going wrong. The Melbourne Com Games in 2006 for you, you clip a hurdle and you hit the deck. And obviously, as you hit the deck, that's a medal gone.
Yeah.
I remember seeing you on the telly. You were so upset, as you would be. How do you reflect on that incident in Melbourne?
It was that whole Commonwealth Games for me. I was 19, and it was a huge learning curve for me. I love a crowd, and I love a big crowd, and I love noise. I love as much distraction on the start line as possible because I knew how to focus. It almost helped me. I'm like, be as loud as you want, guys. I don't care because it's helping me. That competition, I didn't know how to focus as well as embrace the crowd, embrace the electricity, the hype that they brought. I didn't know how to balance both focus and excitement. And so I think I embraced the crowd a little bit too much. I let it distract me.
Okay.
So I went into my 100 hurdle final, and my 100 final just not quite there in my focus. And I learned a big lesson from that. And from that day on, that's why you saw me on start lines looking so fierce and tunnel vision and so straight, because that's how I learned how to be able to focus. Inside, I was a completely different athlete. On the outside, I looked really focused and steely. But I learned how to embrace the energy of the crowd, hold it inside of me, and on the outside, relax and stay focused and not use the energy that was on the inside. Because if you did, you were wasting energy for your competition. That was how I dealt with it. And so a lot of people were like, "Oh, you're so like intense and this." And I'm like, "Yeah, but on the inside, I'm dancing."
Yeah.
I'm a very different person to what people may perceive of me. I'm not that sort of person. I just was that sort of racer.
Yeah. Oh, that's a fascinating insight. And look, I mentioned off the top, and we will circle around now to, things went wrong for you that day. You clipped a hurdle. It happened to somebody else in Beijing.
Yeah.
You are an Olympic gold medalist. I mentioned that off the top. That was in London. But for me, as an outside observer, what happened in Beijing sort of sits alongside that. It was one of the most brilliant things I've seen. Now, before I talk about the race particularly, I want to know, because this is an Olympic Games conversation. Do you remember where you were when you were told you are going to your first Olympic Games? You are going to be an Australian Olympian.
I don't think we actually got told.
Yeah. More
I
so the qualifying, I
like
suspect.
qualified and had an email, "Congratulations, you're on the team."
Yeah.
So it was very anticlimactic. The first time I ever got told I was on an Australian team was way more exciting.
Oh,
And
really?
what happened then? So I was 16, and then like the Olympics was just like, "Oh yeah, you're going." I was like,
My God, yeah.
It was very anticlimactic. But yeah, I can like the time I got and now like got told I was on the Australian team was I remember I made the World Championships, which was after the World Youth Championships in 2003 in the 4x1.
Yeah.
So I was at school and then finished our netball game, which we had won. I got home, literally just walked through the door from getting off the school bus, and I got a phone call from Keith Connor, who was the head coach back then, and he said to me, "Oh, I just wanted to let you know that you've made the Australian team for the 4x1." I'm like, "Okay, cool, thanks," and basically hung up. Because I just, for some reason in my head, I just thought of World Youth.
Right.
Like the
Yeah, okay.
like,
Yep.
okay, yeah, well, I already knew I was going. And then I got off the phone, I'm like, "Hang on. That is
Wait a
Keith
minute.
Connor, who's the head coach of the senior, like, high performance team. And he just said I'm going to the World Championships for the 4x1 100-meter relay." He didn't say anything about the hurdles or 200, which I went to the World Youth for. I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm going to the World Championships." I was the only person in the house, and I'm jumping around like I'm a kid in a candy store. Like I was the most, and I'm like, I rang my mum, who already knew before me because I was 16.
Oh,
I
right.
got
Yeah.
permission basically from her to allow me to go because I wasn't an adult, and so I had to
Of
be like
course.
looked after basically.
Oh,
And
that is so good.
and then she's like, "Oh, cool, that's really good." I'm like, "What's why are you excited?"
Yeah.
I was like playing it cool. And then she's like, "Oh, they asked me." And I was like,
Yeah. This is, I don't know if you're a Friends fan, Sally, but this reminds me of Phoebe when she's on the phone and she's like, "This is brand new information." She already knew. Oh, that's fantastic. So I've alluded to it so many times. So let's go to Beijing. It's quite hard to put into words why this sticks in my mind so much. I think a picture can speak 1,000 words, and if anybody hasn't seen you, in the immediate aftermath of that Beijing race, I think you'll understand. But I was fortunate to be there. Mum had Mum had a couple of athletes in the games, and so we were there. It was it was a good time for us to get away with a few things happening in life at the time. You make the final, and you're actually alongside the same lane as Lolo Jones, who was red hot favourite, and a very good hurdler. And we speak about classic hurdles. Things can go wrong. I alluded to it earlier. Things went wrong for Lolo. So basically, I'll sort of summarize the race, but I just want to hear what's going on in your head, because you got out really well. I believe you were first over the first hurdle.
First 5, I think.
Sorry?
The first 5.
There you go. And so right in it, and then Lolo does come through. She clips hurdle number 9, and that puts her out of it. And this is all happening in absolute seconds or milliseconds. There's 5 or 6 of you who can sort of barely be split as you cross the line. What are your memories of this race?
I remember everything.
Wow. Yeah, cool.
I remember everything. So I'm walking up to my blocks. I'm setting my blocks up. What athletes do. They set their blocks up. They kind of walk to the front of their blocks, look if it's straight. And I remember looking down, and there's how there's a front plate at the front of your block, the spikes are in, and you push the blocks down so they stay into the track. And I remember seeing it's like a metallic, so it's very like reflective. And I remember seeing in that front plate the reflection of the Olympic flame. I will never ever ever forget it. And this flame at Beijing was huge, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was like
it was impressive.
It was massive. And so I could see that reflection in the front plate, and I'm like, I felt like I was going to win a medal anyway. Like, no one else really knew, but I did. I knew I was going to win a medal.
And Sal, you had actually told media that you were like, I just want to make the final.
Yeah, of course. Because that was the Australian culture. You don't want to say big note yourself. And I hadn't really got to the point where I felt confident to say I could win. And so I'm like, inside I knew I could win a medal. I didn't think I would win gold, but I knew I could get a medal. But everything had to go to plan. But then I see this flame in these blocks, and I'm like, okay, that's good. I love that. That will stay in my memory forever. I'll never forget it.
Yeah, love that for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, universe.
Yeah, wow.
And then I just changed. My personality before that race went completely to a place that I'd never been before. And it was a personality that I only saw on TV. And it was like, I was screaming and I was yelling and I'm slapping my legs, and I'm like, this isn't me. What am I doing? Like, why am I psyching myself up? Like, you see those people slapping themselves, and I'm like, what am I doing? Like, I'm looking at my hands going, what? It was so bizarre, but I was so hyped up that I was just, get this race going. I want to go.
Yeah.
I remember running, coming out of those blocks, the gun went, and I've taken off. I've always had a really good start. I got over the first hurdle first, and I'm like, great. This is typical me. Like, I'm having a good race, because my heat and semi were like, meh. They weren't fantastic. I just got through.
Yep.
And I just knew I had to get it right. And I'm running, and I'm like, okay, good. Start's good. That's 1 tick. Second hurdle, I'm like, great. I'm still ahead. Oh my God. Third hurdle. Oh my God. I am winning the Olympic Games. I said, I am winning the Olympic Games. And then obviously you could feel the other girls coming, and sort of got halfway through. I'm still slightly ahead, and I could see them. And in previous races, I've been distracted, and I've kind of been way too aware of where everyone is, and I'm always not running my own race. And my goal at this competition was to run my own race. And I'm like, you cannot get distracted from anybody else in
Yeah.
your race. If they come up to you, they're going to go past you. Don't even think about them. Just keep doing it. Keep running. Keep turning your legs over. And so I got to like hurdle 7. I'm like, cool, I'm still here. Like, I didn't really know where I was then. I just stay focused, eyes focused, keep going. Lolo went down and I saw the whole thing because I'm right next to her. I saw the whole thing happen and I'm just like swearing, go. I'm like, come on. And I'm like, just keep focused. You're almost there. And just keep, I'm looking straight ahead. I'm like, come on.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and I knew I was like maybe 3 steps from the finish line. And I kind of looked with my eyes a little bit, just a little bit. And I'm like, okay, I'm in a good spot. And I'm like, I'm in a really good spot here. And I'm like, I don't want to miss seeing what this looks like. So I'm like, I have to see this. And so when I dipped over the finish line, I turned my head because I want to see what's going on. And I'm like, I got a medal.
So your face in that moment. So I was going to say, like, I hear from mum, like, dip, look straight ahead. The dip was obviously perfect. Probably turns out won you a silver medal, but it's a sideways look. And your face, people need to see this because it goes from dip to it is brilliant. And obviously you didn't know. We didn't know exactly where you were, but you can see in your face, you're like,
I
I
knew.
think maybe. I
Yeah.
think maybe.
I looked and I'm like, because I knew I was in a good shape, but I'm like, okay, I'm pretty close here. I'm going to turn my head across this line just to see. And I'm in the perfect position to see if I've got a medal. Because athletes, we know what's going on when we cross that finish line. We know if we've got it, if we haven't got it. And I knew. I'm like, I've got silver.
Yeah.
I know I've got silver. I can see this. I'm the photo finish right now. I can see this. And oh my God, I just remember seeing that name come up and it was like a whole dream. It still doesn't even feel real to me.
Yeah.
It was like a dream. I could not believe it. The whole thing was perfect.
And there was a bit of angst there, Sal. Like, we're in the stadium and it's like, I can't remember. It must have felt like a lifetime for you. Maybe a minute, I reckon. We're
Yeah.
waiting for these names to flash up because it was so tight. Dawn Harper, I believe, won the gold. You got the silver, and Priscilla Lopez Schlepp, I think. Sorry about the pronunciation. Got the bronze. Honestly, there were 3 gold medalists there.
Yeah.
Again, scenes we need to see, but you and Priscilla particularly are embracing doing 360s.
Yeah.
Like, how amazing was that to share with somebody?
It was unbelievable because we weren't the favorites on paper. Like
Exactly.
we just were like, we were just happy to be there.
Yeah.
We're in the Olympic final. This is pretty cool. I think all of us knew we had the potential of getting a gold or a silver or bronze or a medal. But because we had those Jamaicans in there, and the Jamaicans through that period were so strong at hurdling.
Yeah.
And the US, but it was more Lolo who was the US athlete. That was the one to beat. And we just did it. We had just won an Olympic medal and we were kind of ruled out like most of the season, like, oh, they might make the final, they might get 4th, 5th or whatever, but one of them might get a medal, who knows. But all 3 of us got a medal and we were just like, we're the underdogs and we just won this. Like we all won a gold medal that night. It was the best feeling in the world. And it was nice to do it with people who were just as excited as you.
Yeah. No, it's amazing. So that is certainly one of the reasons why this sticks out so clearly in my mind. Priscilla, by the way, she was also put under a fair bit of pressure for, the shape that she had got herself into for the Olympics. And so it was amazing to see her overcome that. Yourself, of course. So we had these amazing scenes. Now, Sally, one thing I will never forget from this race is your post-race interview after. Now, you were around at Mum's place. This would have been some years ago, and I remember you being like, because I had it recorded. I've watched this interview so many times. It's one I'll never forget. I remember you were a little bit embarrassed about it at the time, but I suspect as the years have gone by, you sort of embrace it. But for me, this is the young kid bursting out who's just won an Olympic silver medal. And it was just so honest. So I'm going to play you a grab of that and for everybody listening so we can hear it. But, the full version is incredible. But here is some of what you had to say post race.
Can I say that is incredible?
Oh my God. You've got to be kidding me, right? Is this real? This is amazing. I can't believe it. I don't know what to say.
You kept looking and waiting. You knew you'd been in the mix for a medal, didn't you? What was the reaction when you saw the big screen flash up your name?
Shock. I saw Lola go down and I said, go for it. And I did. And I got it. Can you believe it?
Oh, it's almost like you couldn't believe it. But honestly, that was raw. It was just you being like, oh my God, here's what's happened. Here's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Do you, how do you feel listening to that now? We're 12 years, oh my goodness, we're 16 years on from that moment.
I know. I feel like that same person. I really do. I'm a person that wears their heart on their sleeve. So you'll get every emotion from me, from either anger, sad, happy, excited, highly emotional. You will get that from me because I think it's important because you're doing something you love. And so even though inside I knew that I could get a medal, sport is not guaranteed.
Yep.
So to be out for it to come to fruition, get a result that is so difficult in our sport for an Australian country, and for it to all come together at the right time it's always going to be, no matter whether you're the favourite or not, it's always going to be, I can't believe I just did that. Yeah. Even though you just still can't believe it. Like, even when I won London, same thing. It's like, wow, I just did that.
Yeah. It was amazing. It was raw and emotional. And you even dropped a swear on national TV, which was brilliant. It was amazing. It showed us the power of sport, I think, the trials, the tribulations. But to me, you strike me as a person who then pretty quickly that night just got a taste of what she wanted. Did you immediately shift to, maybe not immediately that night, but were you like, gold?
No, I did unfortunately shift pretty much instantly.
Oh, wow.
We had our medal ceremony. We walked back underneath the grandstand and we were all like obviously looking at each other's medals, and Dawn like brought her medal out and I'm like,
Yours is a different colour to mine.
Mine's pretty, but yours is gold.
Yeah.
So it's not, I look like this, like, it's funny, like there's a different perspective from like that video, that video shows my emotional side of myself, which is you'll get any day of the week. But then when the things that you don't see is the competitive side, the serious side, the focus side, which comes when I'm preparing for something big. And that started that night when I looked at Dawn Harper's medal. Yeah.
Yep. Amazing. It's probably the right time to ask this, Sal. Like, you've been an Olympian in Beijing. You're actually an Olympic medalist. You're now gunning for a gold medal, and that's like your sights. What did you have to sacrifice in your career to achieve your dreams?
At the time, I didn't really believe in sacrifices because I chose what I wanted to do. So they were my choices. I chose to be the best athlete in the world, and I had been doing that since I was 6 years old. This was what I wanted to do. I had fun doing it. I loved doing it. I lived every day as an elite athlete because it was my job as well, and I was good at my job. I was the best in the world. And so if I didn't do it and if I wasn't the best in the world, I wasn't getting paid. And I know that sounds probably in some people's minds awful, but at the end of the day, we all have jobs. Correct. Mine was just running and going over hurdles and traveling the world. And I loved it. I was very fortunate to love my job. But I at the time, I don't feel like I sacrificed anything. People have different ideas of sacrifices, I guess, friends and family. But I had friends who understood,
Yep.
and if your friends understand that you will be there one day, then you're not really sacrificing anything, I suppose. There's different ideas, but for me, it wasn't a sacrifice. It was the best life that I could have ever lived.
You give me chills hearing that. You know, what more can we ask for? That is amazing, Sal. So, let's go to London this time. You're heading there. It's a very different situation. You're probably the gold medal favourite.
Yeah.
How different was the feeling of London compared to Beijing?
It was very different. 2000, just going back to Beijing, after Beijing was 2009, and I had a great start to the year, and then I didn't medal at the World Champs that year due to back injury and just emotionally draining myself leading into it, and I was exhausted, and I was so angry at myself for letting that happen to me. So again, I had to learn in 2009 how to repeat efforts, how to get back to the winning stage rather than just being a flash in the pan with my silver medal
Yep.
in Beijing, because I wasn't that sort of athlete. I'm not going to be that athlete that just comes and goes in a second and you never hear from them again. I always wanted to be known for my running, and that's it. I didn't want to be known for anything else except for how good I was on the track. And I
Yeah.
was very set on that mindset. And I didn't care if you liked me or not. It was just, well, this is what I'm doing. Come along for the ride or not. I don't care. It was pretty, I guess, that sort of personality can put a lot of people off, but
Mm.
it is what it is. I was doing my job.
Yep.
And I remember in at the end of 2009, I'm like, right, okay, I really have to get my shit in order.
Yeah.
I got a big 3 years coming up, 2010 Commonwealth Games, and I knew that I had to start, I guess, practicing what I preached to myself. I wasn't preaching to the public, but I was preaching it to myself.
Yep.
If I want to be the best, I have to act like the best, and I have to train like the best. 2008 was great, but I still wasn't, in my eyes, didn't see myself as elite because I wasn't doing everyday practices as an elite athlete. Didn't have that mindset yet. And to that end of 2009, I said to my coach, I said, I want to win the Commonwealth Games in the hurdles. She said, okay, let's do it then. And that was in October of 2009. And it was in October 2010 that the Commonwealth Games were on. And it was going to be
Sharon Hannon we're talking about?
yes,
Your coach? Yep.
he was my coach then.
Yep.
And then it was a long year because Commonwealth Games were in October in 2010 because they were in India, so they needed to be a little bit cooler, I suppose. It was a long year because I was trying to get back from my back injury that I sustained the year before. And I didn't race much. I just needed to train. I needed to get the work into my legs because I had a big 3 years coming up leading into London. And I just had to put my head down, bum up, and be accepting of the fact that I wasn't going to race much. I raced twice in Sydney, I think, and I ran the 100 and the 200, and I ran out of this world. Like, I didn't even think that I was capable of running that fast. And I think I ran 11:39 in the 100 and 23:1 in the 200. And I wasn't in no way in any shape or form leading into those. But I just needed to race. And I had 3 straight weeks of good training leading into that. And I was like, let's just do it. I just need to get away from training for a bit. I need to compete. And I did that. But then I got married as well in April in 2010. So it was kind of like an off year for me.
Yeah. Slightly big deal.
Yeah, I just needed to have that season where I could rebuild. I didn't even go to the national championships that year because I'm like, I need to get this work done. I can't be distracted because it was a long year for me. And then, 2010 came along and I decided very late into the Commonwealth Games, oh, I might run the 100 as well at Commonwealth Games, which was great because I was in shape for it.
Okay.
And none of the big names were coming out to those Commonwealth Games. I was like, yeah, why not? Let's just do it. I don't know if you remember, but I remember very clearly that I got disqualified in the 100-meter final.
I remember.
I won. But I knew straight away there was something that was going to happen. Anyway, got disqualified in that. But then 3 days later, I ran the hurdles.
What was the disqualification specifically? Sorry, let's not dwell on it. But what was it for specifically?
False starting.
Yeah.
But what had happened was I thought I had false started. I'll admit it. But they called us back and they didn't false start me. They false started Laura Turner in, I think she was like lane 2. I can't even remember exactly lane. And I was like in lane 7. She had false started as well. But because she went off the mark before me, they didn't false start me because she was first off the blocks.
Yeah.
And then what the British, or the English, I should say, sorry, at Commonwealth Games, they protested against me because there's no way that I could have been distracted by her so far away to have false started as well. Because obviously if you false start and you're the second person on the blocks, it's usually because you're right next to each other. So you've been reacted by that person. So yeah, they didn't that's why I got disqualified, because if they didn't have protest, I still would have got the gold medal.
Those darn English.
They would have still got a medal if they didn't protest because Nigeria got disqualified for drug testing.
We could do it.
She still would have got it anyway.
We could do a whole podcast on the English, Sal.
Anyway, that was done. And then 3 days later I had to do the hurdles, and I knew I was going to win. Like, there wasn't a lot of main competition in that race, but I still had to run the race and I still had to get through it. And I was just like, I ran terribly in the heat. I think I even ran like 13 seconds in the heat. And I'm like, what's wrong with me this year? I'm just like, I just felt a bit off that year. I wasn't my sparky self physically. But I still got the job done in the final. And I'm like, look, I'm not going to break any records here. It's not going to be super fast. It was faster than I thought it was going to be. But it wasn't super fast. But I'm like, hey, look, this is a big tick for me. I've won. I've done what I've come here to do. And now I've got 2 more years to get to London. And I said to Sharon after that, going into the 2011 season, 2012 season, that these are the biggest years of my career and I have to get it right, which means I said to her, if I'm going to win in London, I have to win the World Championships in 2011. And she's like,
aren't they mutually exclusive?
In my head, if I didn't win those World Championships in 2011, I wasn't winning London.
Wow.
I don't.
And for our non-athletics listeners, by the way, the World Championships basically are equally as difficult as the Olympics. You have the best in the world. Take nothing away from the Commonwealth Games and the medals you've done there, but there are a few missing. The World Championships, and I mentioned your achievements off the top. Those gold medals are, perhaps not as valuable as the Olympics purely because they're the Olympics, but they're equally as hard to win. And so for you to say, I have to win the gold medal in the World Champs, that's a big deal.
Yeah, it was. And it was going to be one of my biggest races of my career. And it was, and it still is. But if I didn't win that, I wasn't winning London. And I don't know why. And my coach was like, well, you don't have to. Nice, but you can still win the Olympics if you don't win the World Championship.
Yeah. It's a year later, so.
In my mind, it's not happening.
Hey, look, you did become so you won that, and then you did become an Olympic champion.
I did, yeah.
And to be honest, the scenes were pretty similar to Beijing. We saw a reaction when you crossed that line. We saw the same angst during the wait for those results to flash up on the screen. Only this time, for me, I suppose I get the value of a super slow-mo cam. It did seem slightly more clear.
Yeah.
And you probably, I suspect, knew that you had the gold, but you still had to wait.
Yeah.
And then there it is, flashing up in London. You are an Olympic champion. You're an Olympic gold medalist.
Yeah.
That moment in Beijing 4 years later that sparked you.
Yeah.
You're Australia's Olympic champion. You're a gold medalist. How did you feel in that moment?
Obviously ecstatic. I did what I went there to do and I won. But it was a different feeling. It was more just like oh, thank goodness, it was relief. It was done. Can I go do it again now without all the angst?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it was very much like that, which is, I guess, a little bit unfortunate because you want to feel that same like excitement from when you were in 2008, that little kid again. And I did feel that, but it was just different expectations on myself, I suppose. And
Yeah.
everybody else knew that that's what I was feeling as well.
It is really cool to get there. How are you feeling at the moment? But I also want to know now, what does it mean? What does it mean to you, right here in 2024, to be an Olympic gold medalist?
Mm. It means everything. It defined my life for so long, and people hate when they say, "Oh, sport shouldn't define you." I'm like, well, it does. Okay, it does. If you want to be the best in the world, for that moment in time, it does,
Yeah.
and it kind of has to as well, I think. So now it's just a moment in time. It doesn't define me now.
Yeah.
It does help a lot with some things that I do, but I'm a very different person to when I was back then as well. And I'm finding my feet again. I feel like I'm like the little 12, 13-year-old who's just getting into athletics and wondering why they're not flipping down the runway doing gymnastics. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, where are the hurdles? Where's the crowd? Why isn't anybody cheering for me? It's like, you're on your own now. Go out, like finishing high school, and go find a job.
Yeah. Yep. No,
That's
that
what it's like, yeah.
yeah, and it must have been difficult, Sal. Which I do want. Yeah, look, I will ask you very shortly about retirement and that transition phase, but I suppose one more question during your career that I did want to touch on was Rio. You were obviously had every intention of going. You know, silver in Beijing, gold in London. Let's go back and defend it.
Yeah.
But leading up to Rio, you suffered a hamstring injury, and that effectively ruled you out. How difficult was that to deal with?
I loved and hated the period of 2015, 2016 for multiple reasons. And no one's ever really probably going to know unless we have hours and hours to talk
Yeah.
what had happened. Like so many injuries in that year, a lot of injuries in that year, a lot of emotional heartbreak and angst and unhappiness.
Okay.
So it was probably inevitable that I was going to injure myself like that and rule myself out of the Olympics. I wanted to go to the Olympics, but I knew I was not ready in my head. I knew I was so unhappy. I didn't like myself. I didn't like the people around me. I was really unhappy. And so when I tore my hamstring 7 weeks out, I was almost relieved because
Wow.
it gave me a chance to not go. And I'm like, I got to start again. I can't do this anymore. I'm so unhappy.
Well,
Yeah.
so this is, I think, a really important aspect because from the outside, people go, she's an Olympic silver medalist, then gold medalist. How
Yeah.
can she possibly be unhappy? Which we know full well is not the case.
Yeah.
Everybody's different and things happen. Life is different behind closed doors. Can I ask, what was it that was making you unhappy? And I suppose I want to know how you dealt with it as well.
Yeah. So I had changed coaches after 2013. Gone through two coaches. One
Mm,
initially was a great mate of mine. Well, is a great mate of mine, and he really helped me out. Got me through 2014 Commonwealth Games. Really supported me, had my back all the time, which I think a coach should have. They should always have your athletes' back. Went into another relationship with a different coach and just wasn't working out. It wasn't great. And I had a lot of injuries through 2015, like so many. It's when I broke my wrist, tore my Achilles like twice, tore my hamstring, all in like the space of 12 months. And just a relationship breakdown as well.
mm,
There was so many things that happened that just kept pulling me down, and the amount of times that I just cried almost every single day through that 12-month period. Um, my body was letting me down, my support was letting me down. The only people that I could really rely on was my husband. Um, and then then the Olympics didn't happen, and that was 7 weeks out, and I remember saying, "Okay, well, I've got probably about 8 weeks to decide whether I'm gonna continue on in this sport or if I'm gonna retire." And I gave myself that time, and it just so happened I started training again. I think it was on the 8th of August, which was the first day of the athletics in Rio.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard because people don't usually see that side of me, and I was very broken. I was emotionally broken. I don't even remember. I remember speaking to your mum a couple of times through there, but I don't know. I had so many different people message me, which was nice, and I think your mum was one of them.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was just a really, really hard period in my career, and I really didn't enjoy any of it.
I am so appreciative of you sharing that, Sal, because it doesn't matter if it's sport or life. We have these ebbs and flows. To hear it from somebody who has been so successful at what they do, but they're not prone to bad times, I think is really important. And I certainly appreciate it, and I think a whole lot of people that are listening will also appreciate that. And then I suspect one of probably the biggest challenges you've had in your life, purely because you were in the sport for so long. And when we do something for so long, to face the mortality of that section of our lives is difficult. But in 2019, 16 years competing, you called an end to your decorated career. So what was it like facing the challenge of moving on and starting a new phase?
It was difficult, and I'm kind of the person that um, if I can't sit still and do nothing. I can for little periods of my life, but I can't do it for very long. And so I was like, I bought a house and I got pregnant in like 6 months of retiring.
Bang, we're moving on.
I renovated a house and I had a baby, and I was like, whoa, didn't even get time to go on a holiday or do anything.
Yeah.
um, yeah, I think that was my way of dealing with it, really, is to try and stay busy. Because it was hard, and I didn't like have a full meltdown or anything. I just kind of took it in stages, and I had to cry sometimes, and then I was like, do I come back after my baby? I almost did. You probably saw on some Instagram pages, my Instagram page a while ago,
Yep.
through that 2020 period, and then obviously Tokyo got cancelled, and I'm like, so I started training. And I trained really well, and I was training really well.
Yeah.
And but I also wanted another baby, and I just didn't want to wait any more years and get older. And then, like, if I did come back and if I did make the Olympics, then I was like, I'm too old to have a second baby. Like, it's
Yeah, okay.
being female in that sense as well, because we're the ones who have to carry it. And you don't want to be.
Of course.
I didn't want to be an older mum. I didn't want to be in my 40s doing it. So I had to make a decision, and I decided to have another baby. But I think it's the first time I really publicly admitted that I was making a comeback. I just didn't tell anybody.
Yeah. Oh, wow. It's not the most high profile sport, to be honest, Sal, athletics. But like I felt that I've noticed an uptick of the interest and the passion in it. I was speaking to a friend the other day. I said, I'm having a chat with Sally Pearson, and she said, "Oh, she's my favorite Olympian ever. Like, I love her, and so inspired by her." And like anecdotally, I was like, "Yeah, you're not the only one that's told me that," which is interesting. And then I wonder if you remember, this instance when I mentioned earlier you were staying with Mum. We went out for dinner one night. We were at the Marmion Angling Club just down the road in Perth's northern suburbs, and we were at, it's like a pub style on the water, and we were having dinner, and then I could see there's these two guys just sitting at a table having a beer, and they're looking over for about 20 minutes. And then one of them finally worked up the courage to come over and said, "Sorry, but are you Olympian Sally Pearson, like Olympic gold medalist?" And you were like, "Yes." And then turns out he'd had a bet with his mate. He's like, "I'm certain. That's her. That's Sally. It's Sally." They got their photos, and he was like cock a hoot when he told his mates, "I told you. But not being the biggest, the biggest profile sport, like, can you walk down the street without being noticed, or are people pretty much drawn to you, particularly after those gold medals, of the gold medal?
It was difficult for a period of time, and I wasn't the sort of person that liked to be the center of attention when I wasn't on the track.
Yeah.
And I had a few, like, it was really hard for me. I used to get embarrassed quite a lot because you'd have some moments when you're in a shopping center, they actually yell out like, "Hey, sell it!" And I'm like,
Oh god.
I hated it so much, and
Yeah,
sometimes I
right.
might have come across as not, a nice person because I was like, I was mortified if
Yeah.
that happened to me. I didn't like the eyes on me. Like, if they were on me, it was fine. If they were quiet in the corner, like, it's like, whatever, you can look, but just, like, don't make a big scene about it, please. Like, I don't want
Yeah.
I didn't want swarms of people. It made me really uncomfortable. But it has gotten better. Obviously, like, years pass, people forget. They might remember if you bring it up, that, "Oh, yeah, I remember that."
Yeah.
Um but it is getting better, but then at the same time, it's, like, if I go to Melbourne, it's a different story. They know me down there.
Yeah, right. Yep, yep.
It's a big sporting capital, so I
Yeah.
feel like I'm more well known in Melbourne or even Europe or than I am, like, in my own city, or people are just sick of seeing me on the coast. They don't care anymore, I don't know. Uh,
No, it's
no,
yeah.
but it was a time where it was a bit difficult.
Yeah, for sure. Sally, to be honest, we could talk with you for hours. It has been fascinating, but I finish these discussions with the same two questions. So the first one, super prominent. We're only a handful of days out now from Beijing. We're going to sorry, from Paris, and we're going to have billions of people across the world watching, including a lot of young kids. Sitting there watching the Olympics.
Yeah.
What do you say to a young person who looks at that screen and goes, I want to be an Olympian one day? What sort of advice do you have as you reflect on your career and with everything you've learned? What would you say to a young person that thinks that
Um
has those dreams?
Don't stop believing, I suppose. It's pretty simple. I mean, I had the same dreams to be the best, and I was always reassured by that belief in myself. I just kept believing all the time, and it is hard work, and you still have to do the work. Belief just doesn't get you there. You still have
Mm.
to do the physical work to get yourself there as well. But it all starts with that little belief in yourself, and hopefully nobody knocks it for them, and they just support them through it like I had.
Yeah, I'm actually going to go rogue here and throw one extra one in because belief can waver a lot. I know personally for me it can, but for so many people and young kids particularly, things will go wrong.
Mm.
How did you stay tough? You told us about that period
Yeah,
leading up to Rio. You've had plenty of other
yeah.
down points. How do you remain resilient?
I think because I knew I never stopped believing, even when I
Yep,
had those periods, because I kept telling myself it's okay, because if you get up and you train and you get fit, you're gonna get fast and you're gonna be the best. Like, I just kept telling myself that. I'm like,
yep,
"Yes, it's hard. Right now, it's really hard and you're not really happy. But once that period passes, you're gonna be okay."
because it does pass.
It does. It passes all the time. It might feel like it's taking forever to get through, and it feels like that light at the end of the tunnel is so far away. But in a year's time, you're going to forget about it, and you're going to be back right where you know that you belong. And
Yeah,
so I kept telling myself it's going to be okay, um, even if I didn't want to feel okay, and I allowed myself not to feel okay, to feel not okay. Um,
yeah, yeah.
and yeah, and then I just kept saying, "It's all right. Once you get back to training, you're gonna be back to where you were again. You don't just lose your talent."
I think that question's important to me because we're presented a world right now which is basically on social media, constant sunshine and rainbows,
Mm,
and life. I think, well, it's not. Life's not like that.
no.
So that's why I feel a lot of people are running into some problems because you're presented with constant positivity.
I
But
get
it's
sucked into it too as well. I'm like, "I need to be doing more with my life."
yeah, yeah. There's only a finite amount of hours in the day. Um, Probably, and it's closely related to that. It is my most important question that I ask all my Olympians is what does success mean to you?
It's changed a lot as well. So for me, when I was an athlete, success was winning. Ugh, isn't that awful to say? That's what it was for me. But success now is like, trying new things for me in particular,
Yep.
because I was in the sport for so long and I was so good at what I was doing. And as I was saying before, stepping away from that and basically just getting a job is a huge deal for me.
Yes.
So I'm terrified of failing, but it hasn't stopped me from trying new things, even though like I've gone to work. I work at 7 on the Gold Coast, and I've been bawling my eyes out because I've like stuffed up completely, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm such a failure. I'm so bad. Like, I can't believe this. But I think the thing is like if you stuff up in a lot of other jobs other than athletics, is that it's all right. Nobody died, or you didn't lose the gold medal. You can go back another day and do it again.
Yeah.
And that's a realization for me that it is okay. You're allowed to make mistakes in the real world, and you can go back and you keep trying. And you can do it in athletics as well, but Olympics is every 4 years, so if you stuff up, then
Yeah.
you get the gold medal. And for me, at that time, success was winning. And so I had to like shift my mentality a little bit in the real world.
It's amazing to hear, Sal, because you can hear it from just anybody, but for somebody that has achieved what you did, to now have your perspective sort of shifted a little bit is fascinating, and I think it's so admirable. And look, ultimately, I'm so grateful for you sharing that, but for sharing everything you did today. It has been, I think, not only for me entertaining, but so valuable for anybody listening. I'm so grateful to chat with not only one of Australia's most decorated athletes, but a fantastic person. Thank you so much for your time, Sally. Enjoy Paris if you can. But thank you for your time today, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thank you.